Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, Maverick family. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Welcome, new viewers from all over this wonderful world of ours. Great to have everybody here tonight. An important milestone news day because the special rapporteur appointed by Justin Trudeau is advising against establishing an inquiry into foreign interference into the Canadian electoral process. And Justin Trudeau is backing that up, of course. No great surprise, but we'll certainly get into that. Tonight, we'll also bring you up to date on the exact situation with the wildfires out in Western Canada. And so a lot of Canadian news tonight, but we'll also talk a little bit about Ron DeSantis. He is on the verge of announcing his candidacy for the nomination for the Republican Party to go up against Trump. We'll talk about that tonight. And special guest, Brandon Pringle, will be back for part 2 of our interview. Continuing, he is with the Solidarity Movement or Solidarity Party of Arthur Pawlowski, the pastor from Alberta. Brandon will be here to continue his interview with us to explain what his platform is. We're going to find out a little bit more about him so we can understand exactly where he's coming from as a candidate in the Alberta election. So give me a moment here. I'm going to click some buttons, run a little promo while I do that. And when we come back, we'll talk first about Mr. Johnston's decision to not have an inquiry into foreign election interference.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, folks, here he is, the special rapporteur, David Johnston. David Johnston advising against holding a public inquiry into foreign interference in the Canadian electoral process. First, a sip of water, and then he delivers the news.
I wish to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. It's a pleasure for me to be with you here this afternoon. I'm joined today by my counsel, Sheila Block, who will be able to assist with any technical points and questions. Our democracy is built on trust. Trust in our institutions, our governments, and our fellow Canadians. Unfortunately, recent allegations of foreign interference have threatened that trust, raising legitimate questions and also undermining our confidence in our government's ability or willingness to protect our democracy. Canadians deserve forthright answers about the impact of foreign interference and whether the government has failed to act appropriately. To be able to make any improvements to the systems that protect our democracy, we must first answer who knew what, when they knew it, and crucially, what was done regarding these recent allegations. This is the focus of my first report. Au cours des 2 derniers mois, j'ai examiné
Weird audio
les
problems.
documents
Not
pertinents
on our
ces
end.
allégations. Il s'agit notamment des dossiers
Probably the
de renseignements originaux.
Or the Knights of Malta.
Des agences de renseignement
The Rothschilds controlling the audio system.
I have had unprecedented level of access. I have worked with the security agencies to disclose to Canadians as much as I responsibly and possibly can in my report, more than has been done before. Based on my review, I have reached 5 clear conclusions. First, foreign governments are undoubtedly attempting to influence candidates and voters in Canada. Foreign interference is a real and growing threat, and more remains to be done promptly to strengthen our capacity to detect, deter, and counter foreign interference in elections. Second, when viewed in full context with all of the relevant intelligence, several leaked materials that raised legitimate questions turn out to have been misconstrued in some media reporting, presumably because of the lack of this context. Third, I have identified serious shortcomings in the way intelligence is communicated and processed from security agencies through to government. Fourth, a further public process is required, but there should not and need not be a separate formal public inquiry. A public inquiry examining the leaked materials could not be undertaken in public, given the sensitivity of the intelligence. However, public hearings on the serious governance and policy issues identified to date should and will be held at the earliest possible date as part of the second phase of my mandate. Finally, I recognize this report's conclusions would be met with skepticism by some, especially by those who in good faith have worked to raise legitimate questions around these issues. The challenge is this: what has allowed me to determine whether there has in fact been interference cannot be disclosed publicly. A public review of classified intelligence simply cannot be done. Therefore, fifth, I recommend the Prime Minister invite the 2 oversight committees on national security, NSICOP and INSIRA, to review my conclusions and provide them with all supporting materials, including an annex which contains the classified information. If they disagree with my conclusions, they should say that. Le défi est le suivant. Ce qui m'a permis.
Okay, I'm going to cut it there because we have reaction from the leaders of all 3 major political parties. Let's go first to the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau himself. All right, here's JT. Come on, Monsieur Trudeau. Where are you? Hang on. Let me find him. He's coming. He's coming. He's coming. He's coming. Come on. Where are you? Mr. Prime Minister, come on. Get to the podium. There he is. He's there.
Je suis très heureux d'être ici aujourd'hui avec les ministres Mendicino et Blair. Pour commencer, j'aimerais remercier l'ancien gouverneur général David Johnston de nous avoir rapidement remis son premier rapport sur l'ingérence étrangère. En mars, il a commencé son examen indépendant pour évaluer l'étendue et l'effet de l'ingérence étrangère dans les élections canadiennes et pour fournir des recommandations afin que le Canada puisse mieux protéger sa démocratie. Le mandat comprenait des recommandations sur les mécanismes et processus nécessaires pour que le Canada puisse combattre efficacement l'ingérence étrangère et pour que les Canadiens puissent garder confiance dans leurs élections et leurs institutions démocratiques. Nous accueillons favorablement le rapport d'aujourd'hui et ses recommandations. Understandably, Canadians have had many questions over the last few months, and that is why we launched this process. The former Governor General has reviewed thousands of pages of classified and unclassified documents. While preparing his report, Mr. Johnston was given complete access to any relevant records and documents from across government. I myself welcomed the opportunity to sit down with him, as did other ministers. He also interviewed senior officials, security experts, and many others. The work has led him to conclude that, and I quote, "The elections of 2019 and 2021 were well protected by sophisticated mechanisms, and there is no basis to lack confidence in their results." Le rapport réitère de manière indépendante et impartiale que les 2 dernières élections au Canada ont été libres et équitables et que les résultats ont représenté la volonté des Canadiens. Selon le rapport, il n'y a aucune indication que la classe politique était en défaut d'agir sur des renseignements, des conseils ou des recommandations. Toutefois, le rapport indique que l'ingérence étrangère représente une menace grave et il contient plusieurs recommandations sur les processus visant à détecter, à dissuader et à contrer les tentatives d'ingérence et à mieux gérer la circulation d'informations au sein de la fonction publique. Nous acceptons ces recommandations. L'ancien gouverneur général a déterminé que la prochaine étape de son travail consistera à tenir des audiences publiques. Nous soutenons ce travail.
Our American
sans
friends,
réserve,
viewers,
y compris
should be
l'intention
taking
du
note of
gouverneur
this.
général de créer un dialogue avec les Canadiens, en
I think is
particulier
connected
ceux
more
issus
to
des
what's going on
communautés
in
de la
your
diaspora qui sont souvent la
country
cible
than you
de
might realize
tentatives
as well.
d'ingérence. Ce travail est essentiel pour l'élaboration de son rapport final. Conformément aux recommandations, l'OSSNR et le CPSNR examineront la partie confidentielle de ce rapport afin qu'ils puissent fournir leur propre évaluation. Letters have been sent to opposition leaders offering security clearances so that they may receive the relevant intelligence. I think everyone can agree with the former Governor General's assessment that all leaders must work from a common understanding of true facts. Mr. Johnson also recognized that more work must be done to address the shortcomings in the flow of security information from the public service to the political level. Our government will always protect the integrity of Canada's democracy and stand up to foreign attempts to interfere with it. And this is a duty our government has dedicated ourselves to since day one. In fact, in 2015, we ran on a promise to bring in oversight of our national security agencies by parliamentarians from all parties, something the previous government had staunchly refused to do, and we did that. The work to counter foreign interference needs to constantly innovate and evolve, especially in a world where interference by other countries in our democracy is more frequent and increasingly sophisticated. Just look at how easy it has been for bad actors to create and disseminate misinformation and disinformation online. And that's merely one example. I just got back from the G7 where we talked about this at length. The illegal invasion of Ukraine and rising authoritarianism were much discussed. And countries there, including non-G7 nations like South Korea and Australia, are facing threats to their democracies. Foreign interference is not new. And it doesn't just target our elections. It targets all aspects of society, our research institutes and universities, our businesses, and most commonly, the the diverse communities that enrich our country. Canada is not alone in this. It has happened in elections in the United States, in France, in Germany, and in the Brexit referendum, among others. At the G7, one of the things we discussed was the rapid response mechanism that Canada introduced when we hosted in 2018, so that we could all strengthen our response to diverse and evolving threats to democracy. We will never tolerate foreign interference. Notre gouvernement continuera toujours de
Looks to
protéger
me like you kind
l'intégrité
of
de la
are,
démocratie au Canada
in a
et de la
way.
défendre contre les tentatives d'ingérence étrangère.
I think
Il
this,
s'agit du devoir.
honestly, my opinion, I think it needs a stronger response. Let's go to Pierre Poilievre now and get his reaction. Here he is.
Fortunately, there's no common sense in Justin Trudeau's Ottawa. We see today that his ski buddy, cottage neighbor, family friend, and member of the Beijing-financed Trudeau Foundation came out and did exactly what I predicted, helped Trudeau cover up the influence by Beijing in our democracy. We know that Beijing interfered in 2 elections to help Trudeau win. We know that Beijing gave $140,000 to the Trudeau Foundation with the express purpose of buying the love and the loyalty of Justin Trudeau. And we know that Trudeau has been briefed on these matters for years and done absolutely nothing about it except try to keep it quiet and call names name call anyone who spoke out about it. And then in order to further sweep the matter under the rug, he put his friend, his ski buddy, his cottage neighbor, and Trudeau Foundation member, David Johnston, in charge of today's whitewash attempt. Conservatives are not buying it. We need a full public inquiry to get to the bottom of Beijing's interference in our democracy. And that's what I will deliver when I am Prime Minister. There will be a full public inquiry into this mess. And in the meantime, we will continue to push for a real foreign influence registry that exposes anyone who does paid work on behalf of a foreign dictatorship to manipulate our politics. It's just common sense. Let's bring it home. Let's bring home control of our democracy back into the hands of the Canadian people. Ramenons le contrôle de notre démocratie chez nous.
Okay. Well, let's stick with this for just a moment.
Bonjour. Je voudrais savoir comment vous...
No, that's enough. You've got the idea. And one more, shall we? How about Jagmeet Singh? Yes, we have him from the NDP. Here he is. Let's see what he has to say about all this.
Report. On that, I want to make it really clear. I respect the work of Mr. Johnson, but I disagree strongly with his finding that a public inquiry is not necessary. I disagree. Given how serious the allegations that we've heard, given that it attacks directly people's confidence in our electoral system, we have been calling for a public inquiry, and we remain resolute that a public inquiry is necessary to restore the confidence in our electoral system, to make sure we're showing Canadians that this is something we take seriously, and for people to have an opportunity to see and hear clearly about what's happening and what's being done to tackle foreign interference. This is something that's so serious it requires a public inquiry. We are going to continue to push for one, and we're going to use every tool at our disposal in the House of Commons to continue to advance a public inquiry. The rigor of a public inquiry, the transparency, and the ability to have questions asked in public and people hear the responses is so important that it is required to deal with the serious allegations of foreign interference. We've seen, though, with the Rouleau Commission, the inquiry, the public inquiry into the Emergencies Act, that we can actually do this in a way that respects national security, because I understand and hear very clearly the importance of us not in any way compromising national security. So I wanted that to be clear. I understand that's a serious concern. We can do that. And the Rouleau Commission showed us that there's a way to ensure national security is not in any way undermined, and we can still have a public inquiry. I do want to point out that there are some findings that the special rapporteur made that are deeply concerning. And those findings were, one, that there was a serious communications breakdown in our intelligence services from what they found and then conveying that to ministers at the highest level. That communication breakdown is something that is completely is wrong. It should not happen and needs to be fixed. There is no justification for that. A breakdown in communication, that needs to be something immediately dealt with. The second piece of really concerning information that was raised by Mr. Johnson is that while there were red flags raised directly to the Prime Minister and to the government, no actionable steps were recommended. The government then just was willfully blind to that and didn't have any follow-up. That is a deeply concerning finding from Mr. Johnson, that despite being flagged of concerning information, the Prime Minister and other ministers did nothing with that. I accept that they were not told to do anything, but that doesn't mean that the responsibility ended. They could have said why. They could have asked for follow-ups. They could have asked for more information. They could have said, why is there no recommended action? And what could we do in addition? The fact that they were so willfully blind to hearing a serious red flag and then not taking any steps, to me, is deeply concerning as well. So there's things that were raised that were concerning. We're going to continue to push for a public inquiry. And I'll just say that in French, and then I'll look forward to your questions.
Okay, well, we heard it in English, and for us, that'll do, because I don't think we have many, if any, French-speaking viewers, and we don't speak French on the show, so we'll pull away from that. I don't know what else to tell you, except that I guess we'll get these hearings. I don't know how much value they will provide, given that there will be a lot of information behind it that will be missing, given that we're talking about classified information that will not be disclosed. This is, in my view, a problem. It's as big a problem, honestly, for the government as it is for the public. I don't think the government realizes how big a problem this is. I don't think Justin Trudeau realizes how this will impact him. He may think that by avoiding this full-blown inquiry, it will benefit him because it will prevent the kind of scrutiny that he's afraid of. In reality, I think this will fuel discontent, distrust. It's really going to hurt him. If he was smart, which I guess he's not as smart as he thinks he is, he would proceed. Unless there must be something, again, my opinion, something really, really damning for him to not want to proceed with a full-blown inquiry. He needs transparency to extinguish the flames of discontent and distrust. Without it, I think he's doomed politically. This will eat the remaining time that he has in office alive. This is like political acid, just going to eat away at him now. The Teflon has huge gouges in it now. For quite a while, he was untouchable. It didn't matter what was thrown at him. Nothing stuck. This will. Mark my words. And as these hearings take place, it will serve to discredit him. I really believe it. Even if it's not even the facts that will discredit him, it's the lack of transparency. This will be a bigger problem for Justin Trudeau than he realizes. He's already suffering from that. And our whole system is going to suffer as a result of this, in my view. But again, just my opinion. What do I know? We'll find out in time. Before we get to our special guest, let me just take a brief break, and then we're going to come back, and I just want to touch on what's going on with Ron DeSantis. Big announcement coming from Donald Trump's biggest political opponent from within his own party.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so this was on Fox. It's the Wall Street Journal, actually, and then Fox is reporting on it. NBC was the first to report on it, and blah, 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 and everybody's all excited because Ron DeSantis is making a big announcement tomorrow. They're not coming out and saying it directly, but we all know what it's about. Tomorrow, Ron DeSantis will announce that he will be running against Donald Trump for the nomination to run for the presidency for the Republican Party. No question about it now. This is what's coming down tomorrow. But he's going to be doing it in a unique way. He'll be doing it on social media. He'll be doing it with Elon Musk on Twitter. So it is very digital, very social media-like. In fact, it's all social media. It won't be in a big hall, I guess. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like tomorrow, but here's what Elon Musk had to say about it today.
Your time, I think, would be probably correct.
Okay.
Yes, I will be interviewing Ron DeSantis, and he has quite an announcement to make. And will be the first time that something like this is happening on social media, and with real-time questions and answers, not scripted. Your time, I think, would be probably correct.
So that was it. Unscripted, answering questions. DeSantis has been slipping in the polls. Trump's been taking shots at him politically online. People opposed to him, I think the pro-Trump camp have been saying that it's doomed to fail, DeSantis's bid to claim the nomination. You know what that says to me? He actually has a shot. I think he's eroding some of Trump's support, and the aggressiveness with which Trump has been coming after him shows that he is actually a bona fide threat politically, that he's a contender. Now, polling shows that Trump still is way out in front. I think the political turmoil that Trump has gone through, I think the Durham report coming out, all of that will help Trump, at least in the short term here. Politics, though, is a volatile thing. You never know what's coming around the corner, what's coming next. We'll be looking in to see what happens with this announcement tomorrow with DeSantis for sure. Big deal, really, because he is a heavyweight within the Republican and conservative circles. I think he's more of a threat than Trump is letting on. That's why so much attention has been focused on him. It's incredible how divisive this has been within the conservative circles, though, and the Republican Party itself. Anyone from either camp that seems to show support either way, they're shunned by the other side. It's been very polarizing. And yet, on many issues, these guys are very, very much aligned, but not entirely. There are some pretty serious differences, too. And Trump now carries a lot of baggage with him. So, after being president and then 2 years now or so sitting outside the presidency, criticizing Biden, trying to take another run at things, but he carries all the baggage of the vaccines, the pandemic, the decisions that were made during that time. It's a different scenario this time around than the first time he was elected president. The first time around, he wasn't a politician, or so he says, or said. Now, he's definitely a politician. And so is DeSantis. But he's a heavyweight. We'll tune in tomorrow and see what Elon Musk has to say or how he handles this tomorrow on social media. Pretty big development, but no big surprise. Stay with me. We'll be right back with our special guest, Brandon Pringle of the Solidarity Movement of Alberta, for part 2 of our interview with him about his candidacy for the party in the ongoing current Alberta provincial election. Don't go away.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, I'm back, and joining us live now, direct from Alberta, is Brandon Pringle.
Hey, Rick.
Sir, welcome back
Good
for part
to
2.
see you. Thank you very much. Good to see you. Nice shirt.
Thank you. Yeah, that seems to be my calling card online. People are always commenting on my stylish shirts.
Oh, outstanding. Good job. Well done.
To get a shirt like this, you have to go to either the thrift store and the secondhand rack or the discount rack at Walmart. One or the other. And that's where you pick them up.
And I'm sure it was not Walmart. I'm sure it was a thrift store.
It was not. It was.
Was it
Actually, this shirt I've had for years. It never goes out of style for me.
Yeah. Was it the thrift store?
I don't remember where I got this.
I bet you it was, because that's too classy. Somebody was cleaning out their closet and gave away a.
I'll tell you, this is definitely not a Walmart shirt. It's too high quality. Yeah. I've had this for years. Yeah. The shirts I buy, I keep them for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
Or I may have made it from the drapes. I can't remember. Anyway, very good to have you back.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to join us again, because in the last interview that we had, I felt like we were just kind of getting things rolling, and we didn't even really get a chance to find out much about you. We talked a lot about the party and, this new solidarity movement, as it's called, out in Alberta with Pastor Arthur, but didn't find out a lot about you. So I guess what we should do is backtrack a little bit just to kind of set the table for people who didn't see the last interview.
Yes.
And then we can dig into some of the new information. So can you explain for people what the Solidarity Movement or the Solidarity Party is?
Yeah, thanks very much, Rick. And again, shout out to Ribby John Scotty. They are intrepid boots on the ground reporter here in Alberta that got this started. So appreciate that, Johnny. Oh boy. I am so sorry. I don't even know what happened there.
Well, let me help you out. So Solidarity Party.
Yes, thank you. Okay, here we go. So Solidarity comes from Poland. Now, if anybody that's over 50 remembers Solidarity and remembers the horrific, horrible communist regime of Poland that so terribly abused its people, and of course, Pastor Arthur is Polish, and he escaped that. He grew up in this, and so he immediately recognized. So he came to Canada looking for freedom. I've escaped that, and now he's here, and so he sees communism all around him, and he's being attacked, and for the crime of feeding homeless people. I mean, it's just unconscionable. So he's called it the Solidarity Movement for that very reason, because it's a peaceful standing up against communism and the communism that's trying to enslave Canada. If you look at what's happening with Trudeau right now, and what you were actually, Rick, you were just sharing about the election interference from where else but China, one of the most horrific communist regimes on the planet. and treating it like it's not a big deal when it's actually it's a major attempt to remake Canada in communist image, and so we don't want that. So Pastor Arter's working very hard to stand up against that, and so am I. And I know a couple of your previous guests have probably mentioned the Naked Communist. And for those of us who have any belief whatsoever or confusion or not sure about like what's happening, all you have to do is read this book, and you actually can see everything, perfectly makes sense. I heard Salim Mansour, the professor from the esteemed professor from Ontario, speaking, and he said that the stars have always been there and the constellations has always been there, but you didn't see them. Not because they weren't there, but somebody connected the dots for you on a piece of paper, and then when you looked up in the heavens, you went, oh, there it is. And that's exactly what you're looking at. If you read a book like The Naked Communist, you'll immediately be able to actually connect the dots and see that they were there all along. It's just you didn't see them. So,
Salim Mansour, is he not the author of the Buffalo Declaration?
That is a good question. I heard him speak, so I didn't do a bunch of research on him, but I'll tell you, hearing him speak was exceptional. And he's not it's funny because he was speaking in a church and he said, I'm not a follower of Jesus and I'm not a Christian, he said, but I'm here to tell you that this thing that's going on right now is not an attack on Islam, and it's not an attack on Hinduism. It's an attack on Christianity. And I thought that was very insightful and very brave of him to say that, especially since nowadays that's kind of not so politically correct. But I thought hopefully that you would appreciate that, because I feel that Maverick News is very much not politically correct and actually taking the truth to people rather than just regurgitating the same old tired things. And just so I don't forget to say this later in the show, we cannot, it is absolutely impossible, please support Maverick News, please support the show. It is not even measurable how important what people like Rick are doing, because he's up against a media machine. Trudeau has spent $600 million of our money propping up legacy mainstream media. And why isn't Rick getting any of that money? Well, because he's not going to promote the narrative. And so
I don't want their money.
Yes.
Thank you. No, I don't.
Yes. And so that keeps you free and that keeps you unbiased. And so that's all the more important why we have to keep fighting and for this. And actually, that's one of our platforms is on this bad boy right here is hold media accountable. If you promote lies and censor truth, you're guilty of furthering crimes of the people lying. And we want to end government funding of media, period. This has to stop. I mean, in Soviet Russia, Pravda was the newspaper, the government newspaper. Now they had the hilarious, if it wasn't so evil, nerve to call, so Pravda is Russian for truth. So their propaganda was claimed to be truth when it was anything but. So Pastor Arter, the guy said 100. Actually, Rick, and another thing I wanted to thank you for actually playing that video right at the beginning of the last show. So please, if you haven't seen it, guys, please go back on the last show and watch that clip. The clip heard round the world, and there's, because the mainstream media has suppressed it, it hasn't got as much traction as it should have. I mean, you go search Pastor Arter's name, there's 191,000 results. There's 5 million views just on Fox alone. And he was actually even on the Times Square billboard, a massive billboard, because of the 2 months that he spent in prison defending us. I don't see any other politicians stepping up the plate willing to go to prison to defend us. And so he's the real deal. And I mean, other people don't know that for his support of Israel, he received the honorary chaplain position for the province of Alberta from Megan David Adam. He also, from Bishop Dr. Gary Kilbrana, the Secretary General of United Christian Churches of Kenya's Supreme Court Council, gave him honorary ordination for his humanitarian work in Africa. And he's not just doing this on the streets of Calgary. He's been doing this for years around the world. And so these are the kind of people that we actually want in a political position, that actually care about the poor, that are just up in the government for the sake of having a fancy government job and getting the red carpet. I mean, you know, I like to say to people, we're like literal grassroots. I mean, when I hear the mainstream politicians talking about grassroots, it just makes me laugh, because they're not grassroots at all. And for those of you,
Pastor Archer made headlines, I mean, internationally. And here's that clip we ran for you the last time. But this was Mark Stein some time ago during the pandemic when this happened at the church. And this is the clip that we're talking about, where bylaw officers came backed up by police to Pastor Archer's church, and he basically chased them out because they were interrupting a service.
Absolutely.
Alberta. Please get out of this property immediately. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out of this property immediately. You'll come back with a warrant.
He called them Nazis and the Gestapo. Preach it, preacher man. And through the sheer power of his words, he drove the coppers down the stairs like Jesus throwing the money changers out of the temple. For it is written, my house shall be called the house of prayer, and ye are not going to make it a den of totalitarian goons. The only people committing a crime there were Her Majesty's miserable and unworthy Calgary Constabulary, who were in breach of Section 176 of the Canadian Criminal Code. Quote, everyone who willfully disturbs or interrupts an assemblage of persons met for religious worship is guilty of an offence punishable on summary conviction. That's a slam dunk. And that Canadian pastor should file a complaint with, the police. There is a tragic element to the diminished state of the Christian churches.
Yeah.
I mean, thanks. That's so good, Rick. And, you know, nobody complained about Martin Luther King Jr. being a pastor. And the results speak for themselves. What he did for America, and actually for people around the world, is it's not even possible to really lay out how incredible for freedom what he did was. And you know, we're basically, Winston Churchill said, the farther you look into the past, the farther you can see in the future. And we're seeing the exact same thing with Pastor Archer. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. was investigated by the FBI. They wiretapped him. They harassed him. He was accused of being a communist. Big surprise, because that was the big trigger, slanderous, thing to trigger people into believing their propaganda. So, and this is Stasi East Germany, and people would be like, okay, Brandon, just relax, settle down here. You're kind of being bombastic about that, but no, it's really true. When the East Germany, when the Berlin Wall fell, a bunch of there were groups on both sides that wanted to reunite Germany. Well, there was a lot of people on the West German side. They're like, hey, I'm not so, those are bad people over there. And some of them were bad people, but some of them were just people stuck under communist oppression that weren't bad. But they were very apprehensive of reuniting. And so they came up with this idea that the only way that each side would start to trust each other is if the West German side especially got to have access to all the secret Stasi files. And so that's what they did. So everybody could, on both sides, could request a copy of their Stasi file. And this is when a man gets his
I don't
file.
want to get into all this history. I'm more interested in what, I want to talk about you as a candidate. I want to talk about
Yes.
the party. I want to talk about the election. I want to talk
Yes.
about where things are going, where you see the country going. I want to understand what the foundation of the platform is. Those are the things that I think are probably most important and most relevant to Albertans and Canadians right now. And
Yes.
I think that everything we're discussing here is extremely important to Albertans, Canadians, and even Americans, because what we're really
Agreed.
talking about here
Agreed.
is we're talking about issues related to freedom, the pandemic, rights,
Yeah.
rule of law,
Yes.
national and international sovereignty.
Yes.
You brought up Salim Mansour, and I know that he's the guy who authored what amounts now to the Buffalo Party Declaration,
Right.
with which Mark Friesen has been promoting. I
Right.
think you're probably familiar with that.
I just know the name. I'm not totally familiar with
Okay.
that.
And if I wouldn't be a journalist if I didn't ask you some tough questions. So I'm
Yeah,
going to
please do.
ask you, about this a little bit, because, my and I've read the Buffalo Declaration, but it was probably a month ago or so when Mark Friesen first spoke of it. Salim Mansour, in my estimation, is, well, let me just bring up his site here. Forum for Canadian Sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are kind of aligning with this ideology.
Well,
Forum for Canadian Sovereignty.
yeah, yeah.
Where, like,
That-
honestly, I have, some concerns about this stuff, because this
Yeah.
is sovereign citizen, common law stuff. This is all in that vein. And
Yeah,
when I
I
hear
mean-
people saying that they want to save Canada, especially from these, smaller political parties like the one that you're involved with, like the Independence Party that Arthur Pawlowski was the leader of until just recently. The Independence Party, I know, is aligned with the Buffalo Party, that they're sharing some common views on issues like sovereignty.
Mhm.
And the legitimacy or lack thereof of the Canadian government.
Mhm.
And I keep hearing rhetoric from that side of the aisle, your side of the aisle, honestly, that portrays Canada as being a completely illegitimate government that has no authority really over Canadians, because it does, in some cases, they're saying it doesn't even exist. So what is your
Yeah.
view on sovereignty and Canada?
Yeah, I think it's their attacks are very silly. I mean, yes, okay. If there's actually people who are saying that none of the laws exist, well, that's kind of like saying the COVID doesn't exist. That's ridiculous. Of course it exists. I had it. It was horrible.
Mhm.
Of course it exists. So of course Canada exists. So I think going down, like, but what they want to do is well, of course, rules for radicals. Rule number 1 is do not ever debate the person, the radical left. Don't ever debate the person on actual legitimate facts. Always just scream racist, bigot, homophobe. Oh, you're a sovereigntist.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
a separatist. You're a bigot. Blah blah blah. And so
But the point is, so you do think that Canada is a legitimate country, that you do believe that we have a constitution.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And
All
so,
right. So
and so,
we're good there.
well, you said
I'm so I'm just making sure that we understand where you're at with your platform,
that's
because
good. And
I'm hearing people, from that side saying things otherwise.
yes, and your show says to keep out of rabbit holes.
Right.
So I mean, that's I'm not in the rabbit hole.
Okay.
But so when you look at our platform, it's very straightforward. Fast track the 69,000 surgery backlog. And before I go any further, you're absolutely right, Rick, that what we're talking about here in Pastor Arter does matter to people in the States. And we have actually had a number of people reach out to us and be supportive of us defending freedoms of Albertans.
In fact,
and
he's been down to the States and has been invited to speak in a number of venues to various groups, so there's a lot of interest in what he has done. He's become an international figure for sure, personality.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's always peaceful. It's always peaceful. The FBI was basically trying to attack Martin Luther King Jr. And just like the way they're trying, the police are trying to attack Pastor Arter here. It's the same old thing over and over again. And just simply wanting to have Canada back. So that's all we want. Just to have Canada back. Like like to have the Canada back that I had in 1969 when I was born and when I was 10. And so it's completely gone away from that. It's not even recognizable with C11. I mean, that's flat out. I mean, when you have politicians in the European Parliament calling out Trudeau, saying, you get out of our presence. I mean, at what point do you go, oh, like we're not the only ones saying this. People are around the world saying this. I mean, we need to fast track 69,000 surgery backlog. This is unacceptable.
Right, because the healthcare system is honestly, it's taxed. The system, I don't mean taxed in terms of like taxation, but the system is.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they scared all these good people out of the system by trying to force them to do things to their body they don't want to, and so crime and justice. We need local police who know the people in the community. It's a proven fact over and over that you have better outcomes instead of this constant attacks. Like the NDP wants to defund the police. Well, all you got to do is look at Minneapolis and look at the timeline. 2 months. Oh, we hate the police. Oh, we wanted to get rid of the police. And then, oh, crime surging. Oh, we need police back. And then defunding the police is probably one of the stupid things. I mean, anyways, I shouldn't say the word. It's just nobody's thinking that one straight at all. And that just shows it out. We need to elect a chief of police, because the chief of the police right now in Calgary, I mean, I would love that power. Just pull up my phone and say, I want the police to go do this, tweet it out, and the police go do my bidding. That's literally what happened with the mayor. The mayor said, we want this. The police didn't do anything because legally they weren't supposed to do anything. So the mayor's like, well, I'm going to go tweet this out. Next thing you know, you got 10 police officers arresting a pastor. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. We got to stop the indoctrination of our children. We need to.
Yeah, that the mayor isn't really not supposed to direct the police chief or the activities of police at all.
No, that's straight out of Hitler's Germany. Education follows the student. I mean, the ATA, and I'm probably putting a huge target on my back right now by saying this, but the ATA has been literally using our tax dollars to promote the idea that homeschool and private school funding is costing the province money, and they're getting special treatment, when actually the actual reverse is opposite. Homeschools and private schools have saved the province $750 million. Yes, you heard that right. $750 million, and they get better outcomes. So Alberta and Canada are crashing as far as education outcomes because they're bringing woke indoctrination and nonsense into the schools. The teachers, they just pass the kids on to the next grade. And don't get me wrong, I'm not beating up on teachers. I know that there's a ton of amazing teachers who love the kids and are doing their best. But the system is broken. And actually, my daughter's one of those teachers, and she gets a lot of compliments, but they're very, very hampered from bullying from the top to push that agenda, which is more of a function of getting more union dues than it is actually best outcomes for children. Land resources. We have to end all this, C.S. Lewis calls them omnipotent moral busybodies that are trying to decide for farmers whether or not they can use their land and how they can use it. Like, oh, I can only have 4 chickens here or 6 chickens. That's unbelievable. It's a total attack on individual sovereignty. We want to revive energy. We want to build our own refinery. We're shipping all our oil to the States for them to refine it for us. I mean, say what you want bad about René Lévesque, but let me tell you, in many ways, he was an absolute champion and a hero to Quebec. He tried to get funding from the federal government. They shut him down. He tried to get funding from the Canadian banks. They shut him down. So he said, forget you, I'm going to Wall Street. And he went to Wall Street, got the funding, got the hydroelectric dams built, which has put Quebec on a very good, solid path for energy. And so they sell it to the Atlantic provinces, they sell it to the States, and it protects the energy grid. So, I mean, people like him have done such a good job, and no leader in Alberta have had the determination to go build it so we can stop, we can actually make this money for ourselves and fix our insane debt. Like, Trudeau's added $500 billion to the debt. Now, let me tell you, if Stephen Harper would have done that, he would have been fired in the first 3 years. So, I mean, it's just totally unacceptable. We want to hold pharmaceutical companies to the Nuremberg Code. What's wrong with that? I mean, all the doctors that signed on to the Nuremberg Code said that the Nazi atrocities were wrong, and we needed to put things in place to stop them. So let me tell you.
So you want to integrate the Nuremberg Code into Alberta provincial law?
Tough question. That's a tough question.
And the reason I say this is because there's a lot of misconceptions about the way that works, and a lot of people, think that we can hold our, say, Trudeau accountable using the results of the Nuremberg trials, and that's actually not true, because there's nothing binding about the Nuremberg Code in Canada. So some medical organizations use that as a guide, or even a code, not a code, but a guiding principle, and they integrate that into their mandates and their even their requirements for medical professionals and things like that for ethics. But legally, there's nothing there binding. So the people who keep pursuing that idea, again, they're misguided. It's misdirect. They're misdirected. They don't understand.
I agree.
But you could take those same principles and integrate them into Canadian or provincial law in some way if you wanted to. So is that really what you're advocating for?
I think what the idea is, the spirit of the law, like the spirit of the Nuremberg Code. I mean, when we look at World War I and World War II, what are we always saying? Never again. Never again. Right. And okay, just sorry, 1 second.
Sure.
1 second. I'm not going to show you the front of this book. I'm just going to show you the back. And the reason why I can't show you the front, it's got the bad German sign on it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's called The Devil's Doctors. And it's about all the atrocities that were done. And
in World War II by the Nazis, you mean? Yeah.
Yes. And so, well, I'll cover this, but you can see that it says the devil. Oh, yeah. So anyways, the devil's doctors. And so they in the 70th anniversary of the Nuremberg trials, they actually showed that 38,000 doctors joined the Nazi Party. And they also found more doctors than any other profession, so than judges and lawyers and any other profession, more doctors joined the Nazi Party than any other profession, and the doctors became more thoroughly Nazified. And so if anybody actually wants to see that article, I can send that to them. And so they began to see the state as their patient instead of human beings. And that's what we're seeing. So we got to put an end to this.
So I mean, I don't want to get too far over here again. I want to try to bring it back over to today, but I certainly see what you're saying. So now, is that just your personal view on how you would like to incorporate the Nuremberg Code into law, or is that an actual official party plank in the platform?
That is it's actually right on our brochure.
Okay.
Now, of course, it's the spirit of, and under ending WEF on our solidarity brochure, it says to end human experimentation and prohibit government funding of radical environmental organizations and their propaganda. So a number of these things are actually like the latest we call it cupcake because we're not allowed to say it. The latest cupcake has been tested on 8 mice. So that was not even tested on actual people. So, and returning.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too far down that road either. I mean, you're preaching to the converted largely here.
I'll move on quickly. Paper ballots. This whole trying to bring in electronic ballots into Canada is absolutely unacceptable. It's way, when I'm out campaigning and I'm door knocking and talking to people and they're like, well, we're not voting. And I'm like, well, we stand for this, we stand for this, we stand for this. The guy like fist bumps me and says, I'll vote for that. And I'm going to go in the house right now. I'm going to put you on my Facebook page. So we're not going to be splitting the vote because you can't split the vote for the 50% of people that haven't been voting because they can't stomach the idea of the two options, which is, okay, I'm saying it, Dumb and Dumber. I mean, just to make people smile. But there's, if you were an NHL team and you had the track record of the current government or the NDP before, you would have been fired long time ago. The people of Alberta deserve results, and the current parties have not delivered those results. And so we're making sure that they get an option. And we don't have delusions of grandeur. I understand this is a David and Goliath battle. David did win, but that fun part of it aside, if it legitimately, usually they totally lie about the polls, but if they are legitimately neck and neck, and the one party gets 40 and the other party gets 40 and we get 7 seats, we will hold the balance of power just like the NDP does in Ottawa right now. And so that will make sure that the disenchanted and disaffected and ignored Albertans will get a seat at the table, because those parties will be forced to work with us. And we're not, we're grassroots. We're not politicians, especially because, politician comes from the Greek, poly meaning many, and ticks meaning blood-sucking creatures. So that's not us. And so this is not a one-shot deal. If we don't sweep into government in a week, then everybody's on notice about that we're coming
Well, you
for
guys
them.
have what, 40? How many candidates across the province?
We've got 38. It dropped because of these just unbelievably ridiculous election rules that were just made it so difficult and created an impossible time thing. But what a lot of folks don't know is because of the transition from Arthur having to move from independence to create his own party from scratch. There's a number of independents who are completely aligned with us. They just were very concerned about if they weren't able to jump through the election Alberta hoops in time, then they would be in limbo, and they didn't want to do that. So they went through the independent route. But we still have we have the exact same values and principles and viewpoint. So it's just a section. We're just going to be collaborating. They're just not going to be under that umbrella. So we actually have a lot more than the 38 that are on the same page. And if you look at the Independence Party, it's a shell. It's a husk. It's. I think they got 11 or 14 people running. I mean, I love them. There's some great people over there, but the board made a decision, not in the best interest of the people, but what they wanted to do, and that's exactly what's wrong with politics. And so we're going to change that.
I'm not sure what to make of that recording that was released to the media with the Premier, Danielle Smith, that she had with Pastor Arthur and his lawyer, where Pastor Arthur was effectively asking the Premier to intervene on his behalf legally.
Yeah.
She had her feet held to the fire there, because just like a police chief who is not supposed to direct the actions, or sorry, a mayor who's not supposed to direct the actions of a police chief or the police service, either is a premier supposed to become directly involved in any criminal matter or court matter for that matter. But there so I mean, here's a question for you too. I mean, why would Pastor Arthur feel it was appropriate to ask the Premier to intervene on his behalf when he should know that the Premier should not ever do anything like that, because it's an ethical breach? And I mean, he should know better. She should know better. I don't think she said anything improper. I would put it to you, though, that Pastor Arthur did cross the line by asking her to intervene.
You know, that's a great one, and a lot of people would disagree with me. I see it completely different than most people, because a lot of people that have weighed in on this have an agenda. They're trying to they're trying to push their agenda, and rather than look at the overall picture. Jason Kenney broke the law and violated the Charter of Rights by directing officers to crush the Coutts border. It was a peaceful protest. So the detractors of Arthur can't have it both ways. You can't be saying, hey, the Premier directed officers to do wrong, but you're not allowed to try to implore and direct the Premier to do right. I mean, and let me tell you, nobody's talking about.
Did Jason Kenney direct police, though?
Oh, absolutely.
To do what they did at the border?
Yes.
Directly? He directly gave them orders?
Yes. They could have just stood down. There was no reason for them to intervene. They went into that situation on his direction, and that's why he got fired. So, I mean, this is why having integrity is such a big deal, because when the rubber meets the road, when you are, and this goes back, you know, this.
Well,
this,
I'm not sure that that's the case, but we'll let that slide.
Yeah. So,
but we're getting
ultimately,
into ethical, like the issue of ethics here, and because
yes,
no premier, no prime minister, no mayor, no politician, no should ever be directing police. The police are supposed to be arm's length. They're supposed to act autonomously without political bias. I mean, clearly sometimes that's not the case. Clearly in
yeah,
Ottawa, there was political motivation
exactly,
behind what was done. I mean, you can see it, right? Um,
yeah, and that's
but, you know, but
exactly
I
what happened.
have to sit here tonight and again throw it over to you because you're the
Yeah,
candidate for the party.
yeah,
I would suggest that Pastor Arthur in this case is the one who crossed the line by asking the premier to intervene on his behalf. And he was at the time the leader of the Independence Party, now the leader of the Solidarity Party or movement. Either way, it's inappropriate for him to ask because he's the one going through the court battle.
right,
It's also inappropriate for him to ask because he's the leader of a political party.
right.
And the media only ever went after Danielle Smith, the premier, and tried to get her. Like they thought they had a gotcha moment on her. When I listened to the recording, I would say she really didn't say anything wrong, even though the ethics commissioner said that she was in breach. But I think, honestly, Pastor Arthur was in breach of ethics.
Well, I think to me, it goes back to now I'd have to, sometimes all this craziness happens so much that you can easily miss the timeline. But I believe Pastor Arthur didn't become the leader of the Independence Party until the middle of the summer. So, and the Coutts border thing happened in the.
But when he spoke to the premier, he was the leader of the
at that
Independence
point,
Party.
yes. And but see, it comes back to the same old thing over and over and over again, which is when the premier has had a habit of engage, like the previous
and
premier.
Regardless, Brendan, even if he wasn't the leader of the party, it would still be inappropriate for him to ask the premier to intervene on his behalf because the premier can't do that. If she does, it's a breach of ethics. And honestly, it's even illegal.
Well, I would see, and I would, if it was just that cut and dried, I think I would go along with that. But because the political leaders actually engaged and directed people to the border, then
that doesn't matter, because what matters is what the law is and what the ethics are right then and there as that case is being dealt with.
Right.
And Danielle Smith actually addressed exactly what you're discussing here. And again, we don't need to get too deep into this. I think that it's it's a very interesting case. It's a very difficult question of ethics, but on the other hand, I think it's also simple because no politician should ever direct police. And it's also inappropriate for I guess legally, Pastor Arthur, I don't know, because he's not directing police. He's asking the premier to break the law for him.
Well, I think to me, it's this simple.
That's not proper.
Yeah. To me, it's this simple. If Kenny hadn't broke the law by directing the RCMP to break the law,
which would be a court case in itself if he were to be sued or held accountable for doing what he did. But we also know that those kinds of court challenges have been basically defeated because Trudeau because of Section 1 of the Charter, which was used to do an end run around our constitutional rights.
Absolutely.
Because there was the declaration of the pandemic, which is what was the case in every province across Canada and territory. So it's not that simple.
Yeah, and I like I have a super good story that really illustrates this really well. And I really like the pushback because the thing is, real journalism is like, hey, well, what about this? What about this? Not, hey, because the mainstream media is just, they just
cheerlead for Trudeau.
Yeah, exactly. And it's disgusting and it makes me sick. So I want to be on the hot seat. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. the best story one of the great stories that I can think of is my brother was driving from Alberta to BC, and he stopped in Cranbrook, small town, and there was something going on with his car, so they worked on his oil. So on his way out of, they did work on his vehicle. Then about an hour out of town, his engine seized and blew up. And so they had improperly put in, I believe, is the oil plug, and so the oil leaked out and his engine exploded.
Mhm.
And so he was saying, hey, you should pay for this. And the repair garage came back with, no, you should have seen the light on your dash, and your light on your dash should have came on, and you should have noticed that, and so that's why this happened. And the judge, this is what the judge ruled. The judge ruled is said that's a domino thing. Him noticing the light on the dash is after the fact. The reality is this: if you had done the job right, the light wouldn't have come on, and it wouldn't have gotten to a place where that could have happened in the first place. So this is exactly when the previous premier basically was interfering with, basically breaking the law by pushing against a peaceful.
I'm having trouble following the logic here. That's a different kind of court case. That's a civil matter. It's it's
And
not it and it isn't really. We're really talking about here is somebody asking the premier to essentially break the law and then justifying it because you're making an accusation that that the previous premier had broken a different law or had circumvented the constitutional rights of the citizens, which is a whole other court case in itself, which I think at this point has not been thoroughly explored in the courts. But I'm having a very difficult time, connecting those two dots between those two cases.
I think that if we actually had a real legitimate charter and we actually had legitimate judges that didn't push their own agenda, and they actually interpreted the charter as it was written and as it was meant, that this would go away. So we have activist judges.
I agree with that. I mean, that's why I said I don't think it's been thoroughly explored. I think you're
another part of our
right there, Brandon. Yeah, I think Section 1 is the problem. I think the way the judges have been interpreting Section 1 of the charter is improper. I don't think that Brian Peckford's court challenge should have been declared moot. It should have proceeded, and it should have been allowed to challenge what was done. But there's an appeal in process on his part, and hopefully that continues. It will. I think that there will be a day in court with regard to this.
Yes, absolutely, and there should be. So another part of I talked earlier about getting an oil refinery to Alberta so that we're not shipping it out. That just makes sense for all of us. Trudeau. So we've got the war in Russia. I'm allowed to talk about that, right?
In Ukraine, well, kind of in Russia too, but
yes, and so because Trump predicted this. He said to Germany, how dumb can you be and still breathe? Okay, he didn't say that, but I'm sure he said something politically incorrect like that to them. Like, why are you buying
your natural gas from Russia?
From an enemy, potential enemy that we're actually trying to defend you from? Well, of course, that, hindsight's 2020. Here we are. So Germany comes to Canada to buy natural gas, and Trudeau says no. Like, are you kidding me? Like, a ton of people don't even know this. So we're desperate for jobs. Our economy's on life support. We've spent $500 billion fighting COVID, and he won't sell natural gas. Like, we'll sell you hydrogen. So Qatar just signed a 20-year deal to sell 2 billion tons or some crazy amount. I mean, it just says a huge amount of gas. And I spent about an hour trying to figure out actually how much money that's worth. But none of the business things actually laid it out in dollars, because maybe just people would get so mad, you know. And I'm going to say something that I think a lot of people will go, okay, Brandon, now you're going off the reservation. Now you're just pushing it. But it's my contention. And Bjorn Lornborg, Dr. Bjorn Lornborg, who wrote The Skeptical Environmentalist, will back me up on this, that stopping cheap energy, access to cheap energy, is racist. And the reason why it's racist is because it far and away disproportionately affects emerging economies, India, Africa, South America. I mean, you look at Venezuela right now, they're on life support. I mean, if you go to the hospital in Venezuela, you go to sit in a room. They don't have medications. And this is all because of this insane WAF war against oil and gas. And so Trudeau's part of that. So, I mean, I don't like, how does the guy have a job? And, you know, it is amazing to me that the NDP has the nerve and the gall to claim that they're for the blue collar guy and the working man. They killed 170,000 jobs in Alberta. And that doesn't, like, I stock the shelves at Superstore. So when you take away all those jobs, those guys aren't buying milk and eggs. They're buying the very bare minimum. And so they cut my hours. So, I mean, so
that's a good segue, actually, because I'd like to know a little bit more about you. And again, what riding are you running in?
I am in Innisfail, Sylvan Lake. I don't know if it shows up on the private chat there, but I put my email address. It's the longest email address in the history of email addresses. It's Brandon Pringle at solidaritymovementofalberta.ca.
Okay, I'll put that, I'll post that in the comments section for you.
So, yeah, I'm in Innisfail, Sylvan Lake. So for your viewers that are around the world, if you go on your map, if you know where Calgary is, we are going to be in the riding roughly an hour and a half straight north of Calgary, right in central Alberta.
Well, I'm sure if the people are living there, they'll know they're in that riding. And that's the, oh, who's that?
Oh, that's my wonderful wife there. Yes.
She's video bombing
waving high. Yeah, she's waving high. Yeah. So, okay. Wow. My amazing, completely gorgeous, next level, awesome wife just pointed out that I typed it in wrong. Of course I did. I looked at it 4 times. Okay. It's Brandon dot Pringle.
Okay. I'll correct that for you.
Thank you, Rick. You're a lifesaver, babe. Oh, you know, it's funny because there's, I mean, like, I know people are going to say this is being silly, but this climate hysteria has got to stop. I mean, Lennon said the way you get people to believe a lie just is scream it loud enough and long enough. And, you know, there's a stand of trees in Iceland. Just this one stand of trees in Iceland has the capability of cleaning all the air in the world. Like, does anybody really believe that we can control the sun? I mean, I was speaking at a group of 100 people at the debate, and I said, okay, can I have a show of hands? Is there anybody in the room that thinks we can control the sun? Nobody put up their hand. You know, so, I mean, sure, yes, let's be good to the environment. Alberta's got the best environmental record in the world and the best human rights record when it comes to ethical oil. So why won't Quebec buy their oil from us? Why are they buying $50 billion a year of oil from Algeria? I mean, so, you know, you're saying, you know, what do you were talking, Rick, about me. Well, yeah, I mean, I can tell you about myself, but I mean, a lot of this is myself because I deeply care about this stuff because it's affecting my children. It affects me. It affects
just very briefly for the people in your riding. We won't dwell on this too much because we have a much broader audience. But for the people in your riding, tell us who Brandon Pringle is. Like, where did you go to school? You know, you're basically applying for a job when you're running for public office. So give us the Reader's Digest version of your resume.
Yeah, I grew up in BC, wonderful province. If I could, my ideal would, if I could just combine British Columbia and Alberta, that would be the ideal province. I went to public school till grade 6, and then I went to a teeny tiny Christian school that was basically almost literally like Little House on the Prairie. That's what it was for different grades. So I graduated in '89. I went to there was of course the classic NDP, classic British Columbia government has the economy on life support. So there was no jobs there. So I moved to Alberta, and I lived in Banff, and that's where I met my wonderful wife, and we've been married for 30 years. We have 2 kids. My son-in-law's in IT. My daughter's a teacher, and my son's working on his power engineering, and his wife is in the financial sector. And we have a joy of our life is our 2-year-old grandson. And good news for them, bad news for us. They're moving to Japan to take on a new adventure there. And so that's going to be fun for them. And, when they probably come home in a couple of years, our grandson's probably going to be 12 inches taller. I'm a studied pastor. My wife and I have done tons of marriage ministry and finance ministry. Like, one of our financial things was actually advertised on the radio. We've done financial courses. I managed 18. I've done everything. So I understand blue collar. I actually am blue collar right now. I put yogurt and, so if you go to the store and you see the guy in the back putting eggs on the shelf, that's me. I've been a chimney sweep. I've worked at 7-Eleven. I've worked at McDonald's. I know what it's like to be that person trying to make your way in the world and pay your bills. I've managed in sales and management. I managed 18 million a year, and I worked my way up from $9 an hour in sales to sales management and branch manager, managing 18 million in sales and 35 staff. And so here we are. I also worked for 3 of the best hotels in Alberta. So I've been in customer service. I've been in advertising. I've been in sales, marketing, you name it. And so I really, and
so now, basically, to sum it up, now you're into the political arena.
Yeah, because, like it says right on the back of our brochure, all it takes is for evil to triumph is to good people to do nothing. And I think my family is taking a big sigh of relief because I've been talking about this forever. And so I think maybe they thought, oh gosh, if he just gets into politics, he'll stop talking to us about this all the time. So I think they're pretty happy about this. And
you're not going to stop talking about this with them.
Well, okay, you got me. But hopes for them, hope springs eternal. But they and I was gonna go get In Flanders Fields off my wall. Hey, gorgeous, could you grab Flanders Fields for me? If you know anything about helping people, the best way to help people is to give them a hand. Thank you, honey. Yes. Is to give them a hand up, not a handout. And so we've been a number of organizations and some of them that we support. Actually, we've volunteered with the Mustard Seed, In From the Cold, the Dream Center, a number of these organizations. When the whole program of microloans is so effective because it takes a group of people who have nothing and they give them a loan of $100, $250, and they have to pay the loan back. And the group of them all agree that if one of them doesn't pay the loan back, they're responsible for the loan. So they all help themselves, and they're all accountable, and the restitution rate is 92%. And so that's the most effective way of helping people, of giving them a hand up. And I'm taking that into our freedom. And Canadians typically, and actually a lot of people around the world, aren't grateful for the freedom because it didn't cost them anything. I have family that served in the military and that were injured. They paid the sacrifice. They went through the PTSD. They had to be away from their families for years on end while this war was being fought. And most of us have not sacrificed anything, so we're not grateful for it. And so I finally realized that I had to start at the bare minimum, spending an hour a month trying to make sure that our country is on track. But you don't value Canada being free when you didn't sacrifice anything to keep it free. And in Flanders Fields, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this, at the end, it says, "Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields." We must not break faith with those who gave so much for us to be free. And that's why I'm doing this. And, I've said to my family for a long time, I'm either going to be the longest serving politician or the shortest serving. I'm going to be like Ralph Klein, or because I'm going to go in and I'm going to smash the temples of Baal. And I'm not going in there to get reelected. This is the number one infection problem that the politicians have, is their whole time they spend it trying to get reelected. Well, guess what? Ralph Klein didn't do that. He went to the people and he led for the people and he helped the people. And they said, we support that. We're behind that. Jason Kenney, on the other hand, instead of leading like Ron DeSantis and having some guts and determination, for him, it was all about his political career and what he thought was the right thing to do politically. But what's interesting is actually, if you have morals and ethics and values, that is the right thing to do politically. And so if I am elected, the only way that I won't be reelected is if all the forces of evil come against me and try to take me out and, engineer a big major campaign against me to try to take me out, because that's the only way that's ever going to happen. When people see how we lead and that we care about them, we just went for supper with my son-in-law's birthday, and there's a bunch of immigrant guys in the parking lot, and I basically stopped and started talking to them and say, hey, we're concerned about all the job losses, and it matters to me because they've cut my hours because of the job losses. So I'm not some fancy suit politician that is out of touch what's happening with the actual people on the ground. And so this has got to change. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And if it's not this election, then it's going to be the next election. But we're turning this thing around, and people are so excited about our message. So,
well, I mean, it's an unusual election. Pastor Arthur is an unusual leader, an unusual candidate. It's an unusual political party. It's especially unusual because he was just found guilty by the court on those charges related to his speech at the Coutts border, where they said that his intent was to incite, what was it? To incite the people to basically continue the protest. Right?
If it wasn't so evil and wicked, it would be comical. So the judge said, what got him 2 years in prison, of course it's on appeal, and it'll probably go to the Supreme Court because it's absolutely ridiculous and it's affront to democracy.
Mhm.
But the judge, this is the issue with activist judges. So the judge's thing was, when Pastor Art said, hold the line, that is what made him guilty. Saying, hold the line. I mean, like Bill C-11, the end of free speech, you know, I mean, and this is why, of course, Rick, what you're doing is so important, because if we don't have freedom of speech, then, you know, and speaking of freedom of speech, so some people will say, well, hey, we don't want a pastor in. Well, they don't know the history of freedom. The history of freedom, and stop me if I go down this a road too far, Rick, but I think it's very valuable for people to know. When the Pope was deposed, when Martin Luther King nailed the 95 Theses to the door of the Catholic Church and said this abuse of people is no longer right, all the countries of Europe were like, hey, this is great. We don't have a Pope. We can have freedom now. But unfortunately, the wickedness of the human heart, the majority of the kings in Europe went, oh, there's no Roman Catholic Pope. Now we can be Pope. So now each king made himself their own Pope. And so finally the people went, no, we need to be free of this. We need to have freedom of speech, and so the whole foundation of freedom of speech is to have free to talk about God, to talk about Jesus. And so this is actually the fundamental freedom. That's why most places when you go around the world, you have tyrannical regimes controlling people. America, and not so much Canada now, but you sort of somewhat, it's on life support. But that freedom to be able to talk about God goes into everything. So it's critical that we defend it, because that freedom to talk about God means that you have the freedom to talk about anything else that you want to talk about. And you don't have freedom, you know,
Well,
people.
yeah, I mean, I get it. I saw the convoy in Ottawa. I saw the protest at Coots, the protest in Windsor. I saw those as more like a strike action.
Right.
And you know, for me, that's the way I would have approached it legally if I were a lawyer defending
Right.
someone like Pastor Art,
Right.
because there's legal precedent there for people to
Right.
establish picket lines and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there are even legal precedents in place where even infrastructure has been blockaded in the past by labor organizations and so on. But that's another thing. But I do see how the law or the judge would interpret or could interpret what Pastor Arthur said by hold the line or other elements of his speech as being encouraging the protesters to keep protesting, to not move. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt he did that. Was that illegal? I'm not so sure. I think, you know, I view it more like it's a strike, and those kinds of things have happened in the past. So I think they really kind of came down pretty hard on him in that respect. But
I mean,
I'm not even sure I'm not sure where the question is in here. But
yeah, I mean,
more of an observation.
And you know, Rosa Parks refused to sit in the back of the bus and started a revolution of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what the Freedom Convoy was doing. And honestly, my hat is off to them. I'm not going to take it off, but my hat is off to them, because I mean, you could not have asked for better leaders. You could not have asked for better calm. You could not have asked for a more model way to stand up against tyranny. And that's why the solidarity movement is growing and moving forward, because they all came out. Eventually it swelled to the point where 1 million Poles came out with candles, and the communists knew they were done. And this book, everybody should read this book. Now, of course, I'm sure if you follow social media at all, you're going to hear someone say 10 times a day, this is a must read. This is one of the most important books you should ever read. Well, this is actually real. This is actually true. And Pastor Bonhoeffer was executed by the Nazis 2 months before the end of the war. And it was just spite. The Germans knew they were going to lose. They just executed him just for revenge. And he was trying to wake the church up to what was going on in Germany, and they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't listen. And then, and so you have these Germans that come home one day in 1943 and their house is blown up and their children are dead. And they're like, how did this happen? And how could this happen? Well, it didn't happen actually in 1943. It happened in 1933, 10 years before, when they had an opportunity to stand up against Hitler and they didn't. And so we are going to peacefully protest. We're going to peacefully stand up. We're going to use the law, and we're going to do whatever it takes peacefully for as long as it takes to get Canada back to where it was before and off this road to tyranny. I mean, we're not the only ones that are like actually pointing this out. When leaders around the world are castigating Trudeau publicly for this, and I mean, the last time I watched the video, you can hear the whole assembly clapping. It's not like one or two people that, oh, I'm looking for 2 minutes of YouTube fame, so I'm gonna say something out there. No, the vast majority agreed, because the stuff that is going on here is emblematic of Tiananmen, more like Tiananmen Square. I mean, when I say, I can't remember if I said this last time, but we were said, well, you want to replace the Alberta police. Well, when the RCMP is tweeting out, well, wait till they see our jackboots on the ground tomorrow and stomping all over a 75-year-old lady with a walker, that is absolutely unacceptable. And there's a ton of RCMP that are amazing and awesome, and God bless them. My father-in-law is retired RCMP, and man, he served well. So I would be basically saying, all you RCMP that love people and don't want to be jackboot on the ground, RCMP, you just gotta read my form that says, do you support the Freedom Convoy? Do you think that you're supposed to serve and protect? Yes. Okay, great. You're welcome in Alberta. Welcome aboard. And the others aren't, because they're forgotten that we're the taxpayers, and they're supposed to actually protect us from the tyrannical government, not do the tyrannical government's bidding.
So I do want to correct something I said earlier. The author of that Buffalo Declaration is actually Brenton Froelich, but that gentleman you mentioned, university professor, I'm pretty sure he's connected to those parties as well. But I'll have to confirm. I don't know him personally, but I know that name.
I'll have to read it. I'm always have you ever heard of the 10 Steps of Genocide, Rick?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Have you read it?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Yeah. So we're at stage 6 right now.
I kind of like to just kind of stick to the
political
stuff, and specifically
the Alberta election.
What's going on with the election. So how many parties? Well, I guess in your riding, you have how many other candidates running against you? UCP.
Oh, I just found out.
Yep.
You
guys, is there an independence guy?
There's an independence guy. Yeah.
Any others?
And there's a Wild Rose Alliance. It's really long. A Wild Rose Alliance Coalition or something. And then 5. I just checked out the Alberta elections website, and there's another guy, Reform Party. but I've never
still
seen
a Reform Party out there.
Well, this is a shock to me. I mean, I've done 2 debates, and well, actually, I wouldn't say they're debates. They're more like town halls. They're not.
I know
really,
it's so typically Canadian. You're not really allowed to debate. They just have you say what you think, and then they move to the next person.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
boring. We want people to fight.
Yeah,
and
right.
argue. Yeah.
And I mean, it's sad. It's sad because again, now we're going back to Saul Alinsky. Okay, that is a function of Saul Alinsky, which is never debate the issues, just scream racist, bigot, homophobe, and so
they do that because Canadians have always been like, well, we have to be polite about it. No,
yes.
I want debate.
And well, truth, Martin Luther King Jr. said truth goes through 3 phases. First, it's ridiculed. So with all the stuff that went on for the last crazy 3 years, the truth was being ridiculed. And then second, it was violently opposed. And so you have doctors back east saying, if you don't get the cupcake, you should be punched in the face. And so then the truth is violently opposed, and then it's considered self-evident. So we're in this flux right now in between it being violently opposed and becoming self-evident. And so the debates, it'd be great. It would have been great that if I would have been able to say to the NDP guy, and I feel so bad for the guy because he actually had to go to the hospital. And so I said to one of the reporters there, I said, that's terrible that he couldn't make it. And I sure hope he's feeling better and all the best to his family. But, in better circumstances, if he would have been there, I would have said, okay, so the NDP lost 170,000 jobs and put us $80 billion in debt. Can you please explain to me and our healthcare is on life support. So, and crime's out of control. So can you, with those 4 critical things, like
so that's a big thing too. You just mentioned that crime out of control, especially in the bigger cities like Edmonton. We've seen Pierre Poilievre, Conservative Party of Canada leader, make stops in Alberta and, highlight these public safety issues, vowing to address these issues of rising crime. So where do you stand on that?
Well, I live in a tiny town. My actual town is Penhold, which is 10 minutes outside of Red Deer. My car has been broken into twice right in front of my house. There's like 3,000 people that live here. The government's priorities are so out of whack. I mean, I went to a Freedom event and people are drinking Tim Hortons and eating Timbits, and there's some kids running around, and we have RCMP videotaping us. And it's like, okay, do you guys not have any other crimes? Like out of control crimes, but you have 4 people monitoring us drinking Tim Hortons. And so I actually called the local commander and said, can you get this guy to go away? And he's like, well, we're tasked by AHS to keep Alberta safe.
That's Alberta Health Services, by the way, for folks who don't know.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Rick. Yeah, Alberta Health Services to keep people safe. And I said, wait, hold on. Did you just say that you have orders from Alberta Health Services to monitor every peaceful protest in Alberta? And he's like, well, no. And I'm like, then why are you targeting ours? I love the RCMP. They don't get paid enough. And if the federal government would stop us, quit trying to stop us from pumping oil out of the ground, we could pay the RCMP more. But I said to the RCMP, I said, you guys are here monitoring us. I promise you that if I came down to your attachment, there would be a stack 2 feet high of all the crimes that have been happening that you guys claim you don't have time to go deal with. Yet you're busting our chops for drinking Tim Hortons and having Timbits. So the top down, like it needs to be actually it's interesting because when I was interviewing for the previous party, one of the questions they said to me was, what would you do about the police situation? And I won't give the whole answer, but the end of the day, I said, as great and wonderful as there are RCMP in there, it's hopelessly broken. It's hopelessly broken. And it's top down. It's completely broken from the top. And so it needs to be,
so that's why you're advocating for the creation of a provincial police service for Alberta, similar to what we have in Ontario with the Ontario Provincial Police.
Yeah, 100%.
Alberta version.
Yes, because we cannot have any of this, more of this jackboots on the ground thing. And Albertans are peaceful people. There's guns all over the place. And guess what? There's no gun crime here. Gee, what? But the detractors are going to say, and all the gun crime is in Toronto, and that's not me saying it. That is the chief of Toronto Police saying that. And so it'd be so simple. I would add 10 years in prison. So that, and they've done this in the States, and it's been very effective. If you
is that why, is that distrust of police and of the system, is it so rampant? Is that why we're seeing certain people online encouraging the public to go around police barricades during the wildfires, ignore the public officials, take matters into their own hands and fight these wildfires? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great one. I've heard kind of, whispers and stuff of that, but very, very little of it. But my initial, a stream of thought, I guess I'll give you on that is a number of things. Rachel Notley completely threw us under the bus with the wildfires. She didn't want non-union firefighters there. So who cares if a bunch of houses burn to the ground? We got to have union firefighters in there doing the work. Albertans are freedom-minded people, and so I don't want to, I wish that I had a story or an article right in front of me where I had all the exact certain facts of it, so I could say factually this or factually that. But if I'm just going to say, hey, based on you bringing me this information, my knee-jerk response to that is going to be that Benjamin Franklin said, anyone that's willing to give up freedom for security deserves neither and will lose both. And so we're seeing a rapid destruction of freedoms because everything's based on safety. And Jordan Peterson said the best way to raise children is to let them do dangerous things as safely as possible. And so Albertans are freedom-minded. They want to help fight a fire. Now, could they do it wrong and stupidly? Yes. So absolutely, there's a balance. But when 2 days ago, somebody was telling me that their company offered to bring a bunch of water in and it was refused. So, what's the agenda? Why can't a person come and help fight a fire? I'm not yes, I get it. There's safety issues, but so then do it safely. Say, hey, you want to help? Great. Here's a. Well,
I think in fairness to Danielle Smith and the current government, they have asked. In fact, if you go and watch their news conferences, they've made it very clear that if anyone, has any firefighting experience, if they think they can be of assistance in any way, then they are encouraging people to come forward to volunteer or to take employment. And
exactly.
So they're assessing everyone that comes forward. So that absolutely is happening on the government side, but I do see that there is such an erosion of trust from the public in our institutions, including police, that and it's largely because of what we saw happen in Ottawa with, the use of police to beat the peaceful protesters into submission. People have a great distrust of police. And I mean, you're sitting here talking about the distrust that the public has in the RCMP out in Alberta. So you're aware of it. So I guess the real question is, what would you do to restore it? And I think you've already largely answered that by saying you would establish a provincial police service similar to what we've seen in Ontario. So
community policing is so important. And for those that are so worried about guns, there's no gun crime here. So, I mean, if you're really that worried about it, then, and if you were actually legitimately worried about it, you do something about it in Toronto, because that's where the major problems are. And it's this simple. They've done this in the States. There's a bedroom community that outside of Washington, D.C., 150,000 people, and they had, this was 15 years ago, they had the third highest per capita homicide in the entire U.S. And so they were like, this is not good. Like, only 150,000 people, and we're the third. We've got to do something. So they put together a task force, but they can't restrict guns at all. That's the Constitution. So they had to think outside the box. I mean, if people get run over by a car, you don't ban cars. So what was their solution? Well, what they did was they implemented a law that added 5 years in prison during the commission of a crime. So that means if you stole something that was worth $100, but you had a gun on you during the commission of that crime, it automatically added 5 years in prison. And they did a big advertising campaign. And guess what happened? They went from 3rd in the nation to 86th in the nation in only 1 year. So, you know, the Bible says that because wickedness is not swiftly punished, people think it's okay to do evil. And the Liberals and the NDP are so soft on crime. And so if you add 10 years in prison for these gangsters that are using illegal guns, let me tell you, they'd come up with a different solution to their issues. And the Conservatives, they have blown it huge. I mean, when I saw that they closed the prison farms, I was outraged. The whole idea, Jesus is about restoration. He's not about crushing you, and our justice system should be about rehabilitation. It's not supposed to be about punishment. Now, is there going to be a punishment? If you go to prison, that's a punishment. So let's rehabilitate these people. Let's help them get a proper skill so that it's a learning lesson and they actually come out a better person rather than worse. Like Bonnie and Clyde. Yeah, jump in, Rick.
Yeah, so I just want to come back to Pastor Art again, just briefly, because I did go to his church website, and they have a whole bunch of videos posted there. And actually the very first video goes all the way back to 2013. Now, I first became aware of Pastor Art when the pandemic was on and the video was shot of him being arrested while he was feeding homeless people in the middle of the winter in Calgary, right?
Yeah.
Because that was a breach of pandemic lockdown.
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah.
It's so terrible to feed people.
So that was when I first became aware of him, and I couldn't understand why they would target him or why would they do something like that? Over time, I've come to realize that there's a long history between Pastor Art and the municipality, the government, and here's another video. This one goes all the way back to 2013.
Okay, well, this one will be a new one for me. So if you can try to get am I supposed to act outraged or something?
I don't know. I mean, you can act any way you want. This is him interacting with Calgary Transit peace officers back in 2013. I'm not. We'll watch this together. Maybe you can help put some context to this.
Well, before you play it. I was just trying to make a joke that there's a lot of YouTube videos now where they do reactions. So they have the person doesn't have any idea what they're about to see. And so then they record it. The whole show is all about recording their reactions as they,
Well,
as they see it.
let's let this roll and
Yeah.
see what
That's
this
great.
takes us.
That's great.
I just no.
What are you doing?
Sir,
What are you
I
doing?
just can't let you take these
What are you doing?
So keep in mind, this is 2013, okay?
Yes.
And this is, I'm going to turn the audio down on this.
And you got swastika on it? Who do you people think you are? That's not your business.
Yes, it is.
No, that's not your business where I'm going. I'm passing through.
And to where though, sir?
That's not your business. That's not your business when I'm going. I'm a free citizen. Am I under arrest? Did I commit a crime?
Do I need to make you under arrest?
Make me under arrest if you want to. Why not? Because I didn't commit any crime, lady. You're breaking the law. You're breaking the Charter of Rights. Let me pass through because I have a right to pass through. Period. That's...
Do you have any idea what this is about? What is this?
No, I don't. But I mean, when you come from communism,
so here's this guy getting arrested here.
Yes. Yeah, because
What are you doing, people? What are you people? No! What are you people doing? Nothing. What are you doing? What are you doing? Call the police! Call the police! Call the police!
Yeah, I mean, this is so, you know, it's funny because it's like when politicians, you know, there's no politician I've seen that's willing to go to prison for us. He's willing to go to prison for us. He's actually, you know, one of the only people I've ever seen that actually puts his money where his mouth is.
It's transit property.
Why does he keep getting arrested?
Well, because
why does this keep happening?
Because the thing is that just like why did the FBI attack Martin Luther King Jr.? Like it's not, freedom of speech doesn't even start until you don't agree. This is the whole point of Canada, and the whole with Bill C-11 is an attack on freedom of speech. And so at what point do people...
This is something to do with the Calgary Stampede. Stampede Greed, Jesus Offends, says Stampede Committee. Stop Discrimination, Christians. Homosexuals, Muslims, Stampede says yes. Christians, Jesus, no.
Yeah, I don't know really what that sign is trying to say. I think it's just saying that they don't agree with homosexuals and Muslims.
So Pastor Archer doesn't agree with homosexuals or Muslims?
And so, well, and that's, I mean, we all have that, you know, Muslims don't agree with Christians, and homosexuals don't agree with Christians either. So, I mean, we should all be free to peacefully say, I have my opinion, and so another person has their opinion, and we're peacefully, I mean, Canadians generally have been somewhat decent by just saying, you have your opinion, I have my opinion, and we'll both agree to have our opinions. But this behavior by these officers is, so just because they're, I mean, if you want to be a Muslim on the corner and preach the Quran, go for it. Good for you. Like, that's the whole point.
In fairness, I don't have the whole story here. I don't know. I can't tell from this video that they have on the church website, everything that's going on here. This guy here is trying to take something through, like
Yeah, I
cardboard
think
or
they had
something, or
signs up.
wood.
I think my guess is it's signs, but really
Oh, yeah,
ultimately,
yeah. Okay, yeah, that's what it was.
it-
That's exactly right.
yeah,
They mentioned signs. Yeah.
ultimately,
Endangering people, you understand that? You are endangering people. You assaulted me right now for nothing.
Why are you asking him? What right do you have to stop a citizen of Canada to walk on a public land? Who do you think you are?
This is a public land.
Okay, you gotta read.
This is a public land.
No, it's not.
Okay, this is not Nazi Germany.
Actually, he's quite wrong. It's not public.
well,
It
you know,
isn't.
and yeah, and so I guess the thing is that okay, so
Do you understand why it's not public land?
well, because it's owned by the government, probably, or something.
Because it's like a government facility, so it's a building, and so it's actually not a public place. That's why they put the locks on the doors. It's like a hospital, right? It's
Right. Yes.
it's open to the public to come in, but it isn't like public land, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
and you can't have it to be public land because, like, for instance, at a hospital, there's patient confidentiality. That you can't just have the public walking into an operating room just because they want to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or into a patient's room.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's the same thing at at a rail terminal, which is, it appears, where they were there. They need to be able to control the facility for safety and efficiency to make sure the trains run on times. You can't just have people running anywhere they want in the building or jumping out in front of a train or doing something that might get themselves hurt. So it's not a public place. So he's quite wrong. And I see that mistake made repeatedly.
Yes. Personally, my viewpoint in that is you have to you look no further than the craziness that's going on in the States. That if you wear a shirt, a Trump shirt somewhere, someone punches you in the face, and they call that like microaggressions.
Right.
No. Like, the whole point of freedom of speech means you have freedom to present your opinion. I have my freedom to represent my freedom. That's exactly how this thing works. But the left,
my observation here, though, is, the first time I saw Pastor Arthur get arrested, I was really upset. I mean, I was enraged because it's just like, the guy's feeding the homeless and you're arresting him. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yes.
But over time, I've now seen that there's a history there with police, a history with law enforcement, and they keep arresting him over and over again. And there was a history that predated his arrest on that day when I first became aware of him in Calgary during the winter, when he was arrested outside feeding the homeless. So the cops were aware of him, and I didn't know that. So, I still don't agree that he should have been arrested during the pandemic, but I'm wondering, why am I seeing this routine? And why is it that every time he's arrested, it seems there are cameras around and it's always recorded and then posted online. And that certainly doesn't hurt his public image at all.
Well, I think that in the age of, and this is, it's funny.
I'm going to just come right out and say it. It feels kind of staged.
Well, I'll tell you. So when Pastor Arthur, when he was in prison, and he was like, well, I keep getting arrested for being a pastor. They can't surely arrest me for being a politician. And so then when he was,
yes, they can. They will. They did Maxime Bernier too. They don't care.
Right.
In fact, they seem to go after you more if you're a politician. But anyway, I digress. You go ahead.
Yeah, and that strategy might not pan out for him. But so I was there when he was when he was elected, I was there, and there was a Chinese couple there.
When he was elected
elected as the leader of
the
the
leader.
other
Okay.
party that booted him out. And for advertising purposes, I'm not saying.
Okay. Okay.
There was a Chinese couple there, and I
Yeah.
got talking to them, and they were like, "Yeah, we're so blessed to have somebody like Pastor Arthur. We escaped communism. We're shocked that we're coming to Canada and there's so much communism here, and Canadians are absolutely clueless about the communism, and Pastor Arthur is fully aware of it, and he's standing up against it." And so really, when you are kind of on the front lines of this, I mean, go back to Martin Luther King Jr. again, same thing, right? He was attacked. The police hounded him. He was attacked by the FBI. These people don't get freedom of speech. And so what has happened to Pastor Arthur? I mean, and so you constantly are intimidated by the police. You're constantly getting fines. So finally it's like, you know what? Guess what? I mean, I would be videotaping this all the time myself, because this happened to me. I mean, I was at a freedom event where and they're videotaping us. And so I'm out here on the side of the road in my little town, and I've got my big sign. My big sign says COVID equals communism. So I'm literally there on the side of the road all by myself for 5 minutes. I'm there for 5 minutes. RCMP pulls over. Well, let me tell you, the first thing I did is pull up my phone and start recording, because nowadays you don't know if you're dealing with Gabriel or Lucifer. And so the officer was comical. I wish you could see this, Rick. I wish you could have been there. He comes around the side of the vehicle with his hands up like this, like in a "don't shoot" posture, and he says to me very kindly, "Court, hey, you're not doing anything wrong. You're fine. I just want to know what is your sign all about?" And that is exactly what type of interaction there should be. Not jack boots on the ground. Wait till they get our jack boots in the morning. Like you're supposed to be. And Pastor Arthur is okay. Is he a grain of sand irritant in the clam? Yes, he is. But if you let it do its job right, it'll be a pearl. And so the best thing that ever could have happened is what happened with him, because and with the Freedom Convoy. It's bad that it happened to those people, but those people were very brave in what they did. And it's starting to wake up Canadians about the entrenched tyrannical forces that are slowly have gotten a hold of the Canadian government, and they're completely adrift. It's not, and this is again earlier. It's interesting. This is coming a bit circle-ish. So I talked about the doctors in Germany, and 38,000 joined the Nazi Party, and the findings of the 70-year report showed that the majority of the doctors began to see the government as their patient, not living, breathing, precious human beings. And so these RCMP officers and these Calgary police officers in this video, like all the other Gestapo that have come, are not seeing themselves as what their real job is, which is to serve and protect the taxpayer, not to be the jackboot brown shirts of the tyrannical government. If he's actually, like if he actually did a crime, if he actually did something, he would have been in prison 10 years ago. But he hasn't committed any crime. And the so-called crimes and fines that you've got are made up, just like the current mayor of Calgary uses her Twitter feed to go sick the RCMP on a pastor. I mean, the people and I'm actually engaging my local town council for calling one of the pastors racist, and Pastor Archer and all members of the party that my former party that will remain unnamed. And so we're engaging them because the Prime Minister has empowered this. He called all these people racist, misogynist, people with unacceptable views. How long do we tolerate this people? Well, he's the one actually inciting people to violence, and he's not being held accountable. So Pastor Arter is doing an incredible job for Canadians by actually pointing out the complete ridiculous hypocrisy here and being someone that's willing to go to prison to keep this a free country. I mean, like what more could you ask from the guy? I mean, you're never going to have a perfect politician. So if I'm going to not have a perfect politician, let me tell you, I'd much rather, and I think most Canadians would agree.
Actually, I'm just looking here, and I see that it even goes back further than that, Brandon. It's like he's got stuff going back to 2010.
Yep.
He's been protesting outside the Calgary Stampede. It looks like many times.
And you leave communist Poland, and you grew up in that, and you recognize it, and so you stand up against it, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I have a grandson who's 2.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot trying to defend somebody else. He's just the leader of your party, so I'm just talking about it for that reason. But
if you look at the big scheme of things, like like I don't know if you want to talk about one of the things on our platform is outlawing 15-minute cities, and ending digital ID surveillance, restoring basic freedoms, eliminating unnecessary.
They're saying here that he was fined for breaking a city bylaw by trying to crash, that's their word, and this is the Calgary Herald, crashed the 2012 Calgary Stampede Parade with a group from his church. And so Provincial Court Judge Mark Tyndale said in sentencing Pawlowski that he did not feel it was necessary to go beyond the $200 minimum amount prescribed by the city of Calgary. It's a $200 fine. And of course, we saw a video from 2013 the next year. So we went back and did it again.
Yes.
And city prosecutor sought a minimum fine of $1,000 to $2,000. But of course, we didn't get that in 2012.
Well,
Tyndale had found Pawlowski and the 3 others guilty in June of breaching the Calgary Municipal Traffic Bylaw, which carries a maximum fine of $10,000. The other 3 accused were also previously handed $200 fines. In his written decision Friday, upheld Pawlowski's right to freedom of expression may have been infringed to an extent, but Pawlowski contravened the same rights of both the Stampede and spectators at the July 6th downtown parade to kick off the Stampede. No, it's quotation here, no right enjoyed by Canadians, including a fundamental right such as freedom of expression, is limitless, Tyndale said at the time, and convicting Pawlowski and the others. So I see that. And so, I mean, this is like over and over and over again. So, I mean, you can view it in a different perspectives.
A variety of ways. Yeah. I think part of it too that really stands out to me is, and in a small way, we've seen this a lot in Canada, but it's a really good example of in the States when the tyrannical governor of Illinois tried to crush the church was staying open, tried to crush the church. The 2 pastors, they're from Romania. Now, if you know the history of Romania, you know that Poland was nice. The horrors of Poland were nice compared to Romania. Mm-hmm. It was really bad there. And so
I mean, and that's fine. I understand the history of all of that. What we're talking about here is what happened in Calgary.
But just hang in there for a second. I will take it to a good conclusion. They said, no, we're not doing this tyrannical, stopping us from having a service anymore. The governor threatened to bulldoze their churches to the ground. They stood firm. At the end of the day, they took the government to court. They beat the government in court. And the judge specifically said that this is clearly an attack on the gospel, clearly attack on the gospel. And he said what the reason why is because when Antifa was rioting and doing $2 billion worth of damage and murdering 50 people, and Black Lives Matter was doing the same thing, there wasn't a peep from the government. They didn't care at all. But the church wants to have 15% people and sing, and we got to call the FBI. So they beat the government in court. And the same thing happened in Canada when they were rioting in Winnipeg and tearing down statues during COVID. The police just stood there and watched and did nothing. So it's based on his belief system, and which is against everything that Canadians stand for. And so yeah, he might be aggressive sometimes, and he might be bombastic sometimes. But at what point, when you keep getting mistreated like that, do you say, okay, I'm not going to be a wallflower? I actually said in my speech, well, it wasn't my speech, but one of my answers, I said to the crowd, I said, you might find me from time to time politically incorrect. You might find from time to time that I seem like a little worked up. Okay, so do you want the same old, a political wallflower that just goes to Edmonton and does nothing and same old, or do you want a fighter? Do you want someone that actually cares and is passionate about this and is going to go fight for your freedoms and is going to go fight for what's right and true and freedom of speech? And it's sad, Rick, that I just can't get this out of my mind. The last episode, you're like, okay, we gotta flip over off YouTube. Now, are you kidding me? We gotta flip off YouTube? That is unacceptable. But it's like crickets. Nobody. Pastor Arthur is bringing Key and Bexy.
Yeah.
So he got.
So Brandon, I'm really sorry. We're getting close to like 8:30 now. So I'm just going to kind of throw it over to you to try and just kind of wrap things up here for us, if you would.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rick. I appreciate the time so much. And I appreciate the pushback, because we need people on the hot seat so that they can legitimately make a case for the people actually why they are the legitimate legitimate candidate. And I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And the people that are in power right now have proven that they do not have our best interests at heart. So at some point we have to say, and the fear mongering, you're going to split the vote and so that they can continue to consolidate power. Are they fighting for your right to free speech? Are they fighting for your freedom to stop the WEF? Are they fighting to stop 15-minute cities? Are they even aware of any of these things? Most of them don't even have a clue. So how can you actually count on these people to step up to the plate and put things in place and fight for you when half of them don't even know? They're just like, hey, I was a waitress. Now I'm making $120,000 a year, making all these decisions for everybody.
Well, Brandon, I thank you so much for joining us on the program. Ammo C9M makes a very good point, because obviously a regular viewer who knows that I really just want my garbage picked up weekly. I don't really care who's in power. The way I view government is it's like they are the public garbage service. So as long as you fill in the potholes on my street, as long as my garbage is picked up once a week, that's all I really want. Okay. Hopefully you can do that.
And Rick, I want to make sure your garbage is picked up, but I want to make sure you pay 75% less than you're paying.
Okay.
To get it picked up. We're paying way too much. And a good government's going to make sure that you're not nickeled and dimed and taxed to death.
Well,
So,
I'm out
thanks
here
a
in
lot.
Ontario, so it's a little bit different. But if you get elected, maybe you can have set a trend, and maybe we'll get a little less government out here and a little better garbage pickup.
Yeah, we're going to do that. Absolutely. You have my word. I will fight for that.
Well, thank you so much, Brandon. It's been a great conversation. I'm glad you could come back for part 2. I think it was
Thank you, Rick.
insightful for
It's
people.
an absolute pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to possibly win the trust of the people and go fight for them.
Do me a favor, will you? I'd love to have Pastor Archer on the show. So,
okay.
I've reached out to him in the past without success. I don't know if I'm actually reaching him or not, but if you have a direct line to him, please tell him he's welcome on the program anytime. I'd love to have a conversation with him. I'm sure that our viewers would welcome him with open arms.
Oh, big press conference tomorrow that you'll probably want to check out. Big press conference at 12 noon tomorrow. Pastor Arter speaking in front of the legislature. So
is there a live stream we can pick up from that, or
I don't know. I just got the news on the wire. I don't even know really what the big announcement's going to be. So that's a Christmas present for all of you, early Christmas present for all you guys out there. I don't know what this big press conference is, but a number of the members are going to be there. I'm working hard tomorrow, putting yogurt on the shelf for everyone, yogurt and eggs and milk. So I will not be able to be at that amazing event, but I'm going to check it out on TV like the rest of you. And shout out to those, especially, around those of you around the world. Thanks for tuning in to Maverick News, but especially thank you to the States, Canada. You do not get enough gratefulness from Canadians. We understand that we would be in a Soviet gulag that without you, and you've done so much for us, and thank you for the sacrifices that you've made for Canadians. Okay. I can't say it enough. So thanks.
Thank you, Brandon. Ladies and gentlemen, Brandon Pringle of the Solidarity Movement of Alberta. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks again, Rick. Have a great night.
You too. Okay, folks, that gets us to 8:30. I'm going to take a quick break and fire up the phone lines so that you guys can have your chance to weigh in on the issues of the day and maybe even bring me up to date on some things that maybe I've missed in the news cycle. So stay with me. I shall return right after this.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, working on those phone lines. Just give me a minute longer and I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow. Maybe too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, ladies and gents, it's time to go to the phones. First caller of the night. Direct from Burnaby, BC. Who do we have on the line? Caller of the night.
Are you kidding me?
Direct from Burnaby, BC. Welcome back, sir.
Well, I'm not back yet. I'm kind of hiding, dude.
Okay. Care to explain?
I said some things on Justin's YouTube page.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I kind of have like, you know, the alphabet government army. It starts with a C.
Yeah.
And then there's the other alphabet army that starts with an R. So yeah, they've been looking for me, but you know, whatever. I thought freedom of speech really rocked in this country, but apparently, only if you have money and a lawyer, you can actually sort this stuff out, which really sucks.
Ooh.
I don't understand how this works.
Okay.
And this is something that people need to realize, that they'll come to you and they'll jack you up for a law that isn't even there. It's not there.
Well, I'd ask what I would ask what you said, but I'm afraid that if you tell me, we might get into trouble here.
No, I'm not going to get in trouble.
Was it
I know how to. Yeah. No. Do you really want to know it? Because I can do it in code, and you'll totally understand.
Sure.
Okay. So you know that new Rainbow Army law they put out about certain things of speech you're not allowed to say because it starts with an H word, like the H. Oh my God, heaven forbid you say that H word, right? So apparently that is in play now for lots of weird stuff. And apparently, if you express yourself of your feelings without swearing or anything like that, just saying, you know what, dude, I don't like this, and they don't like what you say, they can turn around and go, that is the H speech word. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah, so I've been hiding out for a bit. I've had them come to my house. I've had them come to my company.
Really? Okay.
But yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, if you're trying to hide out, this isn't really the best place to do it.
No, I'm on VPN. And I'm so far away. Dude, I'm smarter than the average fucking Yogi Bear, dude. Trust me.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm doing this for shits and giggles, actually to piss them off is actually why I'm calling in to say, hi, Rick. But I'm doing it for shits and giggles to piss them off because you're not actually going to find me. You don't even know my real name, you dumb fuck. Anyways, so I hope Alberta does not vote not lean because that would destroy Alberta again. She's already had one kick at the cat, like Trudeau, and it sucked. It really sucked. Do you remember the first time she got in? She was terrible.
Yeah.
She was terrible. And she's hooked up with Jug Meat and, you know, the whole corrupt crime family of Trudeau. No. They have to leave Alberta alone. Let Danielle Smith do what she needs to do. I hope everybody votes for Danielle Smith because let's get our country back one piece at a time. If we have to go by province by province by province, let's do it. Take care, Mavericks. Take care. Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Dig the shirt, buds. Dig the shirt, buds.
Yeah, my windows are bare. That I had to use the drapes. But that's
all
okay.
right.
It was worth it.
We're gonna have to. I guess we're gonna have to send you some of my gear, man, so you can wear it on your show. I guess, eh?
Yeah.
Just make sure that you hit up Kim RS. She knows how to get me. So does Anasty. Mavericks, take care of yourselves. Be safe.
Thank
you know what? Always never believe what the mainstream media says. Do research. Read. It's not that hard. Take care, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You have a good night. Okay. Dragon, hello.
Hello, Rick. How are you tonight, my friend?
I am well, sir. How are you?
Well, I'm good and pissed off at the same time. This reporter today, seriously, man, it's a joke. I mean, what he said, it's completely a joke. He sees where there's Chinese or people that is interfering in, and he doesn't see nothing. Seriously, man. By the way, I want to say hi to PK. Hi, PK. But yeah, the thing is that it's going completely stupid, man. This is like, I'm trying to get my mind around the whole thing, and there's no can do, man. How can you expect to have a better system today with that being like what we see today? I mean, you cannot have a better system or rebuild it. We need to rebuild the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, it defies logic to me. He sits there and says he sees the problem. He knows there's a problem. He acknowledges the problem. He knows he's got the evidence of the problem. It's not like a question. He knows it's there, and yet he still says no inquiry. It makes no sense to me, and this will come back. This will haunt Justin Trudeau between now and the next election for sure. This is going to hurt him because of the lack of transparency.
Yep, that's one point. The lack of transparency will hurt him.
Yeah. So in that way, I don't really care because it's going to hurt.
I
know it's going to hurt Trudeau. So be it. So
I have a prediction for next election. We're going to have a Poilievre in majority with PPC probably in a minority government, but that's just my prediction. We'll see what comes next, right? Quote me on that when the election comes.
That's wishful. Are we making a bet? Let's not do that. I don't think that's a bet you want to take. No, I think Poilievre will.
I'm not a bet guy.
I think you're right that Poilievre will be the next prime minister, and that we'll have a conservative government again. But I think the Liberals will form the official opposition. PPC will be lucky if they get anything again. NDP will be in there, and the Bloc. I think you're just going to see probably a minority conservative government again. A minority conservative government.
That fits the picture probably more than PPC on minority, but yeah. Oh, and have you seen on Twitter, there's a lot of talk that supposedly a copter has struck the White House. White House has been under attack.
Oh, another fake AI image. Yeah, I saw that one yesterday too.
Yeah, and everyone was like, "What the fuck is it really happening?" Ah!
Yeah,
people were like screaming at it, but I mean, how is that possible? I seen that. Okay, I don't have Twitter, but somebody have sent me like the a tweet from that. I've seen the thing, and I could see basically it's from Independence Day, the movie. you can clearly see the UFO in the background shooting. I mean, what the heck? People nowadays, right? Brainwashed to the max.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of people are struggling to these days to tell the difference between fantasy and reality. What's real, what isn't. Some people just can't tell anymore, and I understand.
And with that artificial intelligence, this is, I mean,
Yes.
going too crazy.
Yes.
And very dangerous.
Yep.
I think probably tomorrow. I'm not speaking that I want to see a civil war or something, but I can picture pretty much civil war coming from false news or something like that. That someone would probably, I don't know, probably Photoshop at some point where it sounds pretty real, and people will just go crazy about it.
That's the dangerous thing about this AI and propaganda. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like
So
we've
keep your
talked
eyes
about,
peeled, guys.
I mean, we're seeing the deep fakes, right? Like you could have the president appear in a video and say something and have enough people to believe it. Well, we saw just yesterday the dip in the stock market temporarily because of that one photo. You know, and even though it was generated through AI, honestly, they don't even need AI to do that. You can do that in Photoshop. Been able to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
You think that we're not being manipulated? We're being manipulated from all sides. I'm telling you, man. It's not just from one place either. It's like from all over the map. Like other countries, all the political parties, they're all doing it. They're all doing it to us. No wonder we're so confused. You don't know where it's coming from even. Yep.
So keep your eyes peeled, guys, and always subject yourself to questions, because, this is how things work nowadays. Question yourself. Don't believe anyone. Not even me.
That's right. You know, because you know, we've seen long time ago, even you go back through history, and how many times have they used false flags to initiate wars, different governments around the world, right? And that's really what this is about. It's just now they don't even have to actually have a false flag attack of any kind. They can just manufacture it digitally and pretend like it happened and it never did. We're even seeing that in Ukraine right now with Zelensky denying that Bakhmut has fallen. They're just, no, it's not really true. No, the Russians didn't take it. It's like this psychological construct that they're trying to overlay onto the manufactured reality of the world in order to facilitate, the ongoing support for the war. It's bizarre.
Well, all those people that believe in that will actually probably try to give donation to people that say, we need to give more to Bakhmut now that Russian is not getting into it and blah blah, and keep pushing and keep pushing. Well, sorry, dude, it's already game over.
Yeah.
But it's just some grief, my friend, and greed is the word.
Yeah, and we are seeing further escalation. I guess we're looking now at, jets being sent in, so Ukraine will get, I think, some F-16s, and it's just further and further escalation. And it's both sides continue to dig in. Every day gets, I think, closer to a real nuclear conflict, because each side is saying if they find themselves in a losing position where they're going to lose the war, then it's World War III. And basically, I think what that means is it escalates to a nuclear conflict from either side. Russia certainly sees this as an existential threat. So if it gets to that point, I think that the nukes come out, and we better hope and pray that a solution is found before we get there, man.
Well, was it 2 or 3 days ago that Putin actually sent a warning to the world?
Which one? What are you referring to?
it was on YouTube that I saw it, but basically it's a quick warning, as you know, I don't want to go in war or press some button, but if we need to go there with all what's going on and the push from NATO and stuff, that might happen. So I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that would like him to push that button. But the thing is that,
well, he
doesn't want that.
Before, almost a year ago now, actually. I think back in March of last year too, he was saying that he wasn't bluffing, that if he needs to, he will use it.
Yeah, that's basically what he said. So probably it was a comeback from that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's scary now. Thanks, US.
we better take note, man. I'm telling you. We're just not taking it seriously enough because we've never had to deal with it before. But I think this is a very, very real thing for really the first time.
And the Sentient jet, Last thing I'm thinking is that I'm picturing R2-D2 on the X-wing fighter. That must be comical, but yeah, that's one way to see it with a positive note, right?
Well, it's a different kind of warfare. Well, sir, thank you so much for your call tonight, Dragon. I appreciate it, as always.
Well, thanks as always for the good words, my friend. Have a good one.
You too. We're going to move on here, and I'm not sure who this is. Is it Wade?
Yeah, you bet, Rick.
How you doing?
Good. Yeah, well, good considering everything going on. But I just I felt that we, as a country, a citizen of Canada, I've been trying to reach out to the government of Italy and just to offer up an apology on behalf of Canadians for our Prime Minister's conduct with her. I thought that that was so tasteless. I was, I mean, it's getting to be a typical thing with him, but to criticize the leader of another country for their human rights, when he himself trampled his own citizens with horses, when there was a peaceful protest.
Yes, he's certainly in no position to be preaching.
No, and it's an embarrassment. This is getting to be just intolerable, and he needs to look in the mirror and just I don't know, that of course that'll never happen, but anyway, I seriously I'm trying to reach out to anybody who would just I think they need to hear from a Canadian citizen what that guy is really, how he's looked at from a citizen's point of view over here, and then maybe because he just it's kind of like the Christine Anderson thing, she saw right through him. But anyway,
well, it's not just that; it's this thing here too, and I'll get your comment on this, but this, when he's spreading his legs to make himself shorter for the photo with the Korean politician.
I saw that. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Oh, come on. Come on.
It's like he's his own god. And
he's just wow. That's insulting.
Yeah. Yeah, he needs to be punished for that. He just, there's no end to those kind of antics, and your conduct on the, because he doesn't spend hardly any time in Canada.
Yeah,
he's out flying around the world. Yeah, just making a buffoon of himself. Miss Maloney, I think her name is. They got him over in Italy in the front page as a buffoon.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that's being nice.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, there was that, and also
I don't know how much more of this the country can endure. Blackface.
Oh, I know.
Mansplaining, splitting his legs to make himself shorter, planking. What else has he done?
Well, I'll tell you when he first got his first term there, when he railroaded Jody Wilson-Raybould, Attorney General. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I thought he was done then.
Yeah.
Because you want inclusivity on your with all your MPs and all that, and he picked a winner with Raybould.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to just pause for a moment. I see Queenie is in the chat, and I just wanted to say hello, Queenie. Always good to see you, even if it's just in the chat. But I'm sorry, continue. I just noticed the name.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, there was that, and then I guess the next thing I'll go on to was the legacy, the media spin. I've been watching, the Alberta election, and I finally had to phone. I think it was CTV, some of the Calgary stations for what they're doing, to Danielle Smith. I got a hold of one of the editors there or whatever, and I just said, look, I said, you might want to tone it down a little as to how blatantly obvious you're trying to trash that woman. I know you don't like her. I know you said some things, or she might have said some semi-controversial things, but to me, it's election interference. The way I see it, I've never. I just don't see how that should even be a factor. The media is a factor. They pick a side and they run with it. But I called them out on that. And I've also got this thing I'm looking into from the Cranbrook Kootenays, and I just got wind of my niece is a nurse at the hospital in Cranbrook, and her friend she's also a nurse, and they just found out that she doesn't have any vaccines, and they fired her. So I'm just putting that out there. I'm going to be digging into that, and yeah, it's still a thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'll be.
Yeah, well, it is. It's still out there.
Yeah, but anyways, I'll let you get some more calls in. I decided to throw a few points out there and kick them around a little bit, and we'll talk to you on the next round.
You betcha. Thank you very much. And just taking a look in the chat here again. Yeah, and it's good to see Pure Knight back. Haven't seen him in a while. It's Sailor Jerry. And yeah, it was good to see Queenie too, because I haven't seen her in a long time. Maybe I'm just not looking in the chat enough. And of course, there's Antonio and Mouth. And Dennis, hello. And Choosy's back. The usual crowd. So yeah, very good to see some of the regulars, but really good to see some of the names in there tonight that I haven't seen for a while. So I appreciate you guys joining us again tonight. Let's move on to the next caller here. Hello, go ahead. You're on the air. Who's this?
Oh, hi, Matthew from England.
Hello.
I want to talk about the exciting subject of minimum service requirements. It was a new law that was passed yesterday in England, the Minimum Service Requirement Act, which excludes all public sector workers from going on strike.
Sorry, this is in England, is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so nurses and firefighters and all the other public sector workers were going on strike. Obviously, the people exempted from being on strike before were the armed forces and the police and one other category I can't remember. But yeah, they had amendments that are put forward by the opposition party to stop the foul and disgusting erosion of workers' rights. It was the most devastating blow to public sector workers' rights for, well, since forever. It's so extreme, and all the amendments were defeated by the government to the point where if anyone goes on strike and is called to work and refuses, they can be sacked. It's horrendous. I don't know, hundreds of years of trade union development got destroyed in a single day.
Yes. That's appalling. I wasn't aware that it had progressed to that point. They're not talking about that over here in Canada tonight. So I appreciate you calling in to tell us.
Well, yeah, but if it happened here, it's going to happen there.
Yeah.
That's generally it's from America, and then it travels to England or England to America, depending on which Rothschild or Rockefeller you're talking to.
Yeah.
But Canada is what is it? Fascist adjacent, which means it absorbs the yeah.
Yes, yeah, you can certainly. That's true. I mean, it's a trend, right? So if you're right, if it's happening there, it's likely to come here. We're seeing that more and more right now with everything, where these political, legal efforts begin in one country and just spread all through these Western or globalist nations, right? They're all on the same page. They all do exactly the same thing, right down to even now the propaganda and media campaigns that we've seen over the past few years, word for word, same messaging, same everything, same program, same approach to the pandemic, everything. They're all in lockstep. So yeah, you're right. If it's happening there, it's likely to come here.
You broke one story being Canada-based, and then I saw it on Redacted today. It was the interview. Well, not interview, just it was
the exchange
Trudy and the Italian Prime Minister, and he was trying to instruct her on the benefits and virtues of gay society. And anyway, I'm just saying you do get a few stories before the other people, because Canada is a hot spot right now.
Truly is. It truly is.
It's the first Western country to with conservative values to embrace the critical race theory. And the whole point of that was from the early 1990s. I remember politicians talking about the policy of diversity, but it always failed every single time. And anyway, so they kept reintroducing it over the decades. And the first person in world politics who was able to turn over diversity to the people and pretend they were working together.
Yeah, we're losing your audio there. Something's going on with your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
You're all muffled.
All right, I'll leave it there.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you called.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure and insightful, and I'm glad you gave us the information on the right to strike being now denied to basically federal workers, right? In England.
Yes. It was horrendous. It was yesterday, and all of the opposition amendments were defeated.
Yeah, and I can barely hear you at all.
Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir. Great call. And we're done. Okay, folks. That gets us to 9:05 p.m. Been a pretty good show. Thank you very much to Brandon Pringle. Just a reminder that you can support the show by donating at freedomreporters.com. That's the PayPal page that helps us pay all the bills for the phone system, for the software, the hardware, the subscriptions, cover all the expenses and so on. Or you can also donate at maverickdonations.com. That's the Give, Send, Go account. Or you can donate through the Rumble rants on Rumble. No super chats anymore on YouTube. No monetization over there. That's okay. That's the way that's the way it rolls, man. But yeah, make sure you like, share, subscribe, do all of that stuff. Please subscribe over on Rumble. That would help us out a great deal. And if you are on YouTube, make sure you hit that notification bell if you're subscribed there so that you don't miss any of the new videos that we post. And we will be back tomorrow night, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, same channel, Maverick News. Catch you all tomorrow on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.